I'm Tony, and today we're going to foundation paper piece. I'm going to teach you the advanced method of foundation paper piecing of sewing two blocks together. So this is the one that we are making today. It is, upside down. That one we're making today. It is based upon the Sims Plumb Bob, the little thing that goes above their heads. And it's a free pattern. Absolutely free. So the link to the pattern is down below. And as you can see with this pattern, I've sewed together two separate pieces. And that's what we're going to learn today. If this is your very first time foundation paper piecing, please take a look at my beginner foundation paper piecing, all about the Triforce. It's a very, very easy block, same size as this one, but it'll give you the beginner step-by-step. We're still going to go step-by-step today, but this one's a little bit more advanced. So do that one first and then come back and do this one. So let's get sewing. First off, we want to prepare the area. So we've got our lovely block pattern here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to measure this block right here that says 1 inch. We want to make sure that we have printed this correctly. So let's measure this and make sure that this is 1 inch from corner to corner. Let's say if it was like this, if it was a lot smaller or a lot bigger, that means that there's a problem with your printer and your printing. Check to make sure that you have the 100% chosen and it doesn't resize it or fit it to your screen. If you still have problems with your printer printing this out, you can always go to a local printer and ask them to print it for you. But it should print at 1 inch. Now, once you've done that, take your paper scissors. Do not use your fabric scissors, please, and cut out the paper pieces. So we're going to cut all the way out. Now, we do not want to cut it along the dotted line. Remember, you want to cut somewhere around that dotted line. So we've got two separate pieces. Now, on here, as you see, I have top and I have bottom. So we'll get to the reasons why we have top and bottom in a bit. It's mostly we're lining this up to that and making sure that the top and the bottom line up and everything else. This is an easier way for me to explain what it was. So once you've got these, now we're going to cut out our fabrics. So as you saw with this one, I went with a blue background, but for this, I am actually going to go with a purple background just to show you what the differences are. Even though in the picture and in the colors I have light blue, you can use whatever colors you want. Interchange them however you want. So the next step is we're going to cut everything out. So I'm going to go down my list. So take a look at your pattern, like the light green, which is the A1 piece, which is right here. I need a 4 inch by 2 inch, and then another 4 inch by 2, and then so on and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all my fabrics out, speed up the video, and run through it, and then we'll come back with everything cut out. So now our fabric is cut out. Let's take a look at Unit A. So we're going to take a look at Unit A whenever we're doing this. And we're looking at the pattern. A is the light green. So whenever we do our foundation paper piecing, we're taking this light green and we're making sure that it is wrong side to wrong side. All the things that we went through in the first one. Now remember, for the first one, you can use pins or you can use glue, paper piecing glue, which I forgot to have ready, so I had to go and actually get my glue. Now, I like to use the paper piecing glue for the first piece, just because it's an easy way to hold it in place without having any issues at all. So all I did was I put some glue in the center and then held that in place. The rest of the time I tend to use pins. So we're going between A1 and A2. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold this back. I'm going to find where the fold is and fold. I'm going to open this up just to make sure that, I folded that right along the A1 and A2 line because we're adding on A2. Now remember, I said please, if this is your first time foundation paper piecing, watch that first video because I am going to move a little bit faster than I did in that first video. Just to make sure that you understand all of the pieces of this, but not explaining every single detail. So we cut it, of course, we folded it over, and then cut your 1/4 inch away from that folded piece. Okay, we're going to open the fabric back up. And then now we're taking our A2, which is the medium green, laying this down. And remember, whenever you're foundation paper piecing, our goal is to make sure that all of this A2 is covered, plus a 1/4 inch. So I'm laying this down and I'm lining this up so that whenever it folds over, I cover the entire thing. So right there is perfect. And let's pin this in place. Now, I'm going to show you a cheater method because we have 2 pieces. So this is advanced foundation paper piecing, or for those of you that like efficiency and you just don't like to waste time like me, you can do both of these at the same time. So meaning we've got our first step done. So now let's look at our B section. Our B1, we're doing the exact same thing, just laying this out. So our B1 is a medium green piece. And remember, it is wrong side to wrong side. So I'm going to take a little bit of my glue and let's put it down on B1. Wrong side to wrong side. Okay, and then I'm going to fold between B1 and B2, exact same thing we just did. And then we're going to cut a 1/4 inch. Open it back up again. And lay it down. So B2 is the dark green. So we've got our dark green. And we're laying this out. I'm folding to make sure. Yep, nope, that covers it fine. And pinning it in place. So that now I'm going to go to the sewing machine. And I'm going to sew between A1 and A2. And B1 and B2, both of them at the same time. So let's do that. Don't forget, whenever you are sewing, drop your stitch length to 1.6. If you don't know what a stitch length is, you can look down below in the comments and it'll explain what a stitch length is. And again, if your machine should have an explanation of how to change your stitch length. But you want to bring it down to 1.6. Just make sure that you perforate your paper enough that you can tear it away and that you don't have any issues. So let's start our sewing about a 1/4 inch from our line. And then we're going to sew all the way down directly on that line between B1 and B2, going farther about a 1/4 inch. So let's bring this up. We're going to trim this, and then I'm going to trim my starting thread, set this aside, and then do the next one. Same exact thing between A1 and A2, starting about a 1/4 inch away. Now, because we're starting about a 1/4 inch away, you do not need to lock your seams in. So you do not need to go back and forth on those seams to lock those in. You just need to sew it. So, same thing. Let's trim this. And now, let's bring it back to the mat and iron it. All right, so we have both of our A and our B units that we've sewn that first one on. As you see, I have sewn directly between A1 and A2, so that now we're going to iron these. Now, we always want to make sure with my patterns, we iron them towards the new piece. I do use steam. As you see, it curls the paper, but it makes the fabric so much easier to work with. It's not going to damage anything. It's just going to curl your paper a bit, and you just gotta live with it. So there's that one, and then here is this one. Just like that, ironing it towards the new. So ironing towards B2 and A2. So now we're going to do the same exact thing to the other side. So I've showed you step by step how to do B2 and A2. So do the same exact things to A3 and B3, and I'm going to do them, but speed up the video. Before I speed the video up, I forgot, I did mention in the tutorial video 2, this area right here. Remember, we've got this area here. If you've forgotten, make sure we do have to fold it, meaning you have to pull the paper away from those stitches very carefully, and then fold that sheet of paper between A1 and A3. So as you see here, you can see those stitches, and all I've done is pulled that paper away very gently. And then you can continue on and cut your 1/4 inch seam away from your folded edge. Now, if we take a look at these points, you see that beautiful fine little point? This is why you foundation paper piece, to get those perfect fine points, to get some nice ones. All right, so now we're going to move on to A4 and B4. Now, if you notice, A4 looks like this, and then, so A4 is first, and then A5 goes over top of it. So A4 is going to reach over here as well, but I don't care if I reach this area as much, because A5 is going to cover that. So let's take a look at A4. Now in this case, remember, don't forget, pull back that top area for where you've been stitching. And we've got that right there. Now this is a larger piece. So with our A4, let's go ahead and cut our 1/4 inch from our area. Now you noticed I cut some of my seam from a previous fold. That is perfectly fine, because remember, it's mattering of what's this is the picture, so it matters what this looks like, not what the back looks like, although it's going to be nice as well. All right, so right sides to right sides. Let's take our large piece. Now, we have to make sure that we position this in a way so that it's going to cover this entire area here, including this paper. So we have to make sure. So if I were to lay it like this and fold this over, you see there's paper right here. I did not cover this entire area. So what you need to do is make sure that you fold this down here so that when you fold this over, you see what's happened? You see how the whole thing, oops, there we are. It's covered the whole thing. Now, and then you've got that. Now you may notice I've got a little tiny piece of paper showing way down here, but that is not within the dotted lines. We have to cover the entire area from the dotted lines in. So right there is where I want to sew this. So let's go ahead and pin this. Oops. There we are. There's that one. And down here. Perfect. And let's do this next one. So this is B4. So I'm going to pull up my paper so that I can fold the area between B3 and B4. Trim this. Open this back up and lay this down again. So same exact thing. If I were to put this all the way up here and fold this over, I'm not covering all my paper. So I want to make sure, I want to bring this all the way down to the right. And fold. Well, is that enough? Yes, that covers all of the, as you see, I can see some paper, but whenever I look on the other side, it's all within the dashed lines. So that is perfectly fine. So let me pin this and pin the other side. And now we're gonna rinse and repeat. So I'm gonna do the same exact thing I did with everything else. We're gonna sew this area here and here, and then we'll come back, iron it, and finish this off with B5 and A5. And as you can see, there's still a little bit of white showing down here, but when I flip it to the other side, you see how that's definitely within that dashed line. So we just have to make sure that we're completely within that dotted line whenever we do these. So we've got these two done. So now let's do A5 and B5. Exactly the same way we just did A4 and B4. Now, right here, oops, nope, I'm good, never mind. Yeah, yes, nope, I'll show that. Okay, so right here, you notice how I was having a little bit of issue getting this off, and I had to tear some of the paper away. That is perfectly fine. You don't want to leave any paper within there, so if you have to tear some away while you're folding it, it's gonna happen. Don't be upset. You don't have to start all the way over again. It is perfectly fine. We have our top and our bottom. These are done, right? No, not quite. Now we have to trim this. So, don't forget, use your rotary cutter blade that is for paper for this one. We're cutting through this paper. Do not use your fabric rotary cutter. Use your paper rotary cutter. I actually use two different rotary cutters to remind myself of this so that I make sure that I don't do this. All right, so around the, we're going to cut around on the dotted lines. Now remember, this is exactly a 1/4 inch from this line right here. So you can either measure a 1/4 inch, or if you want to actually square this down later on to a 6.5 inch overall, you can totally make it a little bit wider outside of the dotted line. I'm going to do it right on the dotted line, which is a 1/4 inch. And we're just going to go around and trim. So we're trimming both the A unit and the B unit. So with all the ones with all the A's, that is the A unit. All the ones with all the B's is the B unit. Get it? A's and B's. All right, so let's do this. Here we are. So here is our A unit. So I'm going to lay that out just like that. See how much that looks different than that? All right, so let's cut this one out now. Now remember, with foundation paper piecing, you are going to get a lot of waste. For the larger chunks like this, you can definitely set aside and not throw away and save for other foundation paper piecing patterns. You can use scraps whenever you're making foundation paper piecing, but it's also going to create a bunch of scraps. You do not have to follow along my measurements exactly that I have laid out for my patterns. However, you do need to make sure whenever sewn and folded over that it is going to cover the entire area plus a 1/4 inch. So remember, that is the important part. And there are our two halves. So now we're going to get to the point of the intermediate video of the let's go ahead and sew this one to this one. Well, it's not that easy. Let me actually skip to the point in the pattern where we've got that. So we want to, in the pattern, it says we want to take this, flip this up, and pin this. So B2, 1, and 3 line up with A2, A1, A3. Great. So we just pin this right here. The easiest way I have found to do this is I actually lift the top one up a little bit, and I make sure that these lines are perfectly lined up. And then I pinch it, I pick it up, and I look at that. And I look at my seams. If the camera will focus. There we go. Now, if you look at this, you notice there is one issue. These seams are all going the same direction. So you have two options at this point. You can say, you know what, I really don't care about bulk, and I will just go ahead and do that. So as you see here with this one, the seams are all going in the same direction. It is going to cause some bulk right here. If that doesn't bother you, you can leave this alone. So whenever you're sewing and a piece to a piece, if the seams are all going the same direction, if it doesn't bother you, just go ahead and do it. If it does bother you, what you can do at this point is you can take off the paper from one of them. So this is the technique that I'm going to show you here. Now on this one, as you see, I did it the traditional way of just sew it together, and the seams are all going in the same direction. For this one, we're going to show you a little bit differently. And this is a judgment call that you need to make for yourself of how much bulk do you want in there. So we're going to go ahead and take all of this paper out. So we're skipping ahead and taking out my B paper, because my B paper is my B unit is what's going to be on top. And then this one, come here. There we go. Now you notice how I'm not getting all the paper out. So at this point now we grab our tweezers. Remember, my favorite tweezers are of course the Formore's 507s. Those are my favorites. So get your tweezers out and get in there and get all of that paper out. You do not want to leave any paper inside, there we go, of your block. All paper comes out. Now, I am still using regular printer paper for mine. If you've used foundation paper piecing paper, it's probably easier for you to pull your paper out. Or if you've used special paper, it may be easier to pull it out. I have found for the money, I don't mind. I've got really good tweezers. I do not mind sitting there picking all of the paper out. All right, so now at this point, we want to have the seams go in opposite directions. So I'm going to re-iron all of these seams to go in. I'm going to re-iron these seams. So I'm going to re-iron this one over. I'm going to iron this one, I'm going to iron this one, and I'm going to iron this one. Now, whenever you iron the ones that have already been sewn, you notice you're going to have a little bit of a bulk right there. It's going to be about the same amount of bulk as it combined down here. But I'm going to go ahead and iron these now. Let's do that. Now, when I'm ironing these, I'm going to iron the center first, and then the outsides. So I'm ironing that center area and then the outside area. And then here. Now, the benefit of doing it this way is you're going to make sure that all of your seams are perfect whenever you line up the two different Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that the seam goes correct. There we go. There we are. That's perfect. Just like that. You're making sure that as you're sewing the one block to the next block, everything's going to line up perfectly. You're not going to have any issues at all. So whenever you take this and you line it up here, now your seams are facing opposite directions. And because your seams are in opposite directions, you have a perfect nest. So now at this point, you can pin those perfect nests. And then I'll show you after I finish sewing this together and we take the paper out from the A block, I'll show you the difference on the back of how each one looks. So then you can make the decision for yourself. Do you want to go the easy route of just put it on there, line it up, you don't care about the way that this bulk is? Or do you want these perfect points and you want the bulk a little bit more manageable down here, but it's more bulky up at the top? All right, so we're going to take this over to the sewing machine. And then now we've got this all pinned. Let's sew it. Now, the reason why you don't want to take out both papers, only one, because now I'm going to turn this over and we're going to sew along this line right here. So this line right there, that bottom line is what we are sewing on. So let's sew this. So we're just going to sew right along this line right here. And then we're going to take my leader fabric and put it on the end. There we are. And now, let's go iron this and see how it looks. All right, let's iron this open. Now, if you've lined this up correctly, and you've sewn along that line, you should have perfect points. There it is. And there's our plumb bob. All right, so now we want to take out the paper for the bottom. So let's go ahead and remove our A paper. And there. Now, if you don't have nails when you're taking the paper out, you can totally just grab your tweezers and have your tweezers grab the paper whenever you're doing it. Let's bring this down. There we go. Come on. There we go. Perfect. And then now I'm going to go back through and pull out all the little pieces of paper that were left behind. There we go. And then here is the difference in the backings. So you see how with this one, the seams are all going in the same direction. And if you feel it, there's more of a bulk here, 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 and here on the right. And then on the left, you have more of a bulk right here. Versus right here is really flat. But this bulk right here is about the same, if not a touch more, than the bulk in the center. So it depends upon, do you care about bulk? Does it matter to you what you want to do with that? Depending upon if you want the easy way or if you want to try to go through and re-iron some of the pieces. And that is how you sew multiple pieces together in a block with a free block pattern. Thank you so much for watching today. Don't forget to like this video, follow my YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, my Quite Nerdy Quilters Facebook group. I've got a Pinterest, a TikTok for my foster dogs, and don't forget to join me live. I stream live on Twitch as well as YouTube. So don't forget to follow, turn the alerts on, and you'll know whenever I go live.